or printing the audio to tape. I'm saying printing like we're recording to tape. What is happening, people? It's your boy Beats back again. Ready to get into another one of these very quick Ableton Live 10 YouTube tutorials. First of all, I just want to say Ableton Live 11 has just been released. I've got mine on pre-order. I need to go and pay for that and download it. I should be doing that tomorrow or overnight tonight. But for now, we're still in Ableton 10, so let's get into it. I'm sure many people are. So what we're talking about today is gain staging, that elusive topic that people say once you get into gain staging, your mixes will get brought to the next level and sound like industry producers, mixes and so forth. I just want to talk about the basic fundamentals of what it is and why we do it and how it can help improve your balance when it comes to mixing your tracks. So in the analog world, when you used to record and send a signal into a mixer and your meter would read up to 0 VU. So 0 VU is the equivalent of plus 4 dB, somewhere like that, or plus 4 dBu, sorry, which basically means that by the standards of the relative digital maximum limit of 0 dBFS, you would be left with roughly 20 decibels of headroom to play with. And the reason for this is because when you got to 0 VU, you had so much more headroom to then play with the processing. So you could run through analog preamps, you could run through analog compressors and limiters and such, and you could start driving the signals up before getting to its peak limit where it would start to distort. Where the positives are working in the digital world is if one of your signals peaks at, let's say, plus 2 dB and is starting to distort on one channel, but you've got that signal routed to a different channel like a bus. If you turn that bus down enough so it came below 0 dB, it wouldn't distort. So even though the first part of your signal is reading as it being above 0 dB and distorting, you can still turn it down later on in the signal chain before getting to printing it or printing the audio to tape. I'm saying printing like we're recording to tape. But when you would export the sound, it would allow you to be able to go further down the chain and bring that down if you had the signal routed somewhere else. Otherwise, you would just need to turn it down on the actual channel it is, or use a gain utility or something like that to turn it down to make sure it wasn't going above your meter, or just compensate for how much you turn the fader down. The reason why we use gain staging is to avoid having to make that compensation. And this is what I mean by that. If your signal is coming in hot, for example, you would want to use a gain utility or a volume knob somewhere on whatever device you're using to turn that down so it wasn't going above 0 dB. The same is opposite in most cases of gain staging. The signal that you bring in is often a lot quieter than where the fader marker is, or where your fader is set. So you would use a gain utility tool or a volume knob within your software or plugin or whatever you're using to boost that signal so it matches the relative 0 on the fader in your DAW. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So I've got a very quick track I put together. It's just drums, 808 and a chord progression, but within that we've got a couple of the parts that are coming in quieter than where I have adjusted the fader to. So what we're going to do is we're going to be raising the signal so it falls in line to where the fader is set. And by doing this, it means we get a much fuller sound when we come to balance our mix without pulling up too much of the noise floor and creating hiss when we try to raise the overall volume of the whole track to get closer to 0 dB. So I'll show you what I mean. Let's play this and we'll pinpoint where those are. So that was a balance I was quite happy with in the headphones late at night, but obviously now listening to it, it's all a little bit quiet. So let's go ahead and adjust these. So first we're going to go into the kick. Now I can see I've got it set at -6, which is where I usually like to mix to, -6 or -12. Depends on how I'm feeling. There's no real rule to why I do one or the other. It just depends how much headroom I want before I do something else. So if I find that I do it at -6 and I get a couple of dB headroom on the master, that's okay if I just want to do a quick mastering chain and lift up the song. If I know that a vocalist is going to come in and add a lot more volume to the overall mix, then I would mix at -12 and leave more headroom for them to play with. So within Ableton, the beauty of Ableton is you can see that where you've set your marker tells you here at -6, the value above it tells you what the signal actually is. So I know that I need to lift this up a few dBs for it to match where my fader is set. How we do this on the kick is because we've got the kick on a simpler, we can use this volume knob down here to raise the initial input signal until it matches up with where my fader is. Now you can do this visually by bringing the green meter up until it matches the fader position, or you can keep an eye on these numbers here, and when they match, that's when you're pretty close to where you need to be. So long as the top number isn't going above where the bottom number is, you'll be fine to know that your overall signal isn't going above where your fader position is. So if you've got it set at 0, the signal isn't going above 0. So you can see that's pretty close. I've got 6.6 here. Pretty close to the fader. Let's go to the side snare here. Nice, 16 and 16. That is lovely and close to where we want to be. Clap. There we go. It's on 10. Let's go to the hi-hats. Great. The 808 we can see is pretty much spot on. That's because I am using a limiter or a soft clipper on it. So it's not going above 0 dB. I'm just squashing that for a bit of harmonic distortion. And we want to go to our chords. Now our chords is a collection of different omnispheres, and so therefore we don't have the volume output button as we do on the simpler. So here we'd grab a utility, put that at the beginning of the chain before our wider, and then we're going to use the output gain here to push up the signal of the chords. Now, because there's a lot of dynamic movement in this part and I don't want to compress it too much, I'm going to put it just below, so when it hits the highest notes in that chord progression, it isn't going to go above. Great, so now we've got everything pretty close to where the gain is matching the meters. I'm going to bring everything down and just do a general quick mix balance now that we've got everything where it needs to be, and this will give us a fuller overall leveled mix. So as I said before, I like to mix to -6 as my maximum peak, and as my kick is going to be the loudest thing in this mix, I'm going to put my kick at -6 and then mix everything else around that. So generally my clap falls a little bit quieter than my kick, so let's go to 10. Side snare. Again, I want the side snare to just be a bit quieter than my clap. And hi-hats, I want to sit somewhere between the clap and the side snare. That's great. And we're going to pull up the chord progression. And then we're going to bring up our 808 and dial that in somewhere below the kick and probably around about the same as where the snare is. That's where I generally like it to sit. Anyway, that's it, guys. I hope you got some use out of it. It's gain staging in its most basic and simple terms, but that's how you're going to get your output signal sounding nice and full during your mix and balancing stage before you come to really getting into the processing of your mix, starting to add compression, limiting and all of that good creative dynamic movement stuff, and before hitting the master fader or adding a vocal to it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it made some sense. If you want me to get deeper into the actual topic and talk actually about what's going on, the differences between analog versus digital and why the science works, then I'm happy to do that. I don't enjoy talking about it mostly just because it is such an in-depth scientific discussion that is probably way beyond my understanding of it, even though I generally get what's going on. I hope you found it useful once again. Take it easy. Peace. Enjoy. Nice one.